Saturday night, February the 4th, 2023. John Fanta here with you. We've got the coach's perspective. LaVall Jordan is with us. And then we welcome in Bobby D. Rob Dauster on a big Saturday night, one of the best Saturdays on the entire calendar, guys, in college basketball. Number one goes down. The Purdue Boilermakers lose for just the second time this season, 79-74. Indiana beats them. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But Bobby D, I got to start with you. How glorious was this college basketball Saturday?
It was one of those days where I'm reminded how much I love what I do for a living, right? I'm reminded how awesome it is that we get to sit here and literally spend 14 straight hours watching college basketball games, man. It's where I am very thankful that I'm able to set it up where I have like the two TVs going and then the computer screen and like a laptop monitor. It just, there's nothing better than a good conference college basketball Saturday with some rivalry games, with some buzzer beaters, with some scuffles with TJD, getting in Mason Gillis's face. It's just things like this are, it reminds me why we do what we do and why we put in the hours and why we put in the grind and why we kind of decided that this was the avenue that we were going to take. So I loved it, man. This was, honestly, tell me if you think I'm crazy. I think this was one of the best Saturdays I can remember in like the last 3 or 4 years, just in terms of big games. And it was great. I loved it. It was awesome.
There's nothing like it. It's the best, the best sport out there. You get a full day. John Fanta, I know you had a blast. You get a full day. I missed some of it. I had to go to I had 4th grade basketball I was at this morning, so I missed it.
Who won?
We went 2-1. So we did okay.
Hey, LaVall, I got my coaching shirt on right now, man. I got my coaching shirt on right now.
There you go.
The Mount Laurel Cheetahs.
In the words of Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. But it's a blast. There's nothing like 4th grade girls, John.
No, it's good. That's good. I'm telling you what, those are competitive games. Those are competitive. That's back and forth. That's everything's scripted, right?
Oh, jeez. Hey, now a lot of difference when some of the things they do doesn't 18 to 22-year-old college kids do the same stuff. So
right. Which is what makes this sport so great. And that's where we begin here tonight, because if you look across the country, lots of drama to get to, but we're going to begin in the Big Ten. There was no place louder in college hoops today than Assembly Hall. It felt right, guys? Indiana, Purdue, top 25 showdown. The Hoosiers have played well in recent weeks. They've got the home slot. They've got the number 1 team in the country. And Indiana seizes the opportunity. They win this game. Trace Jackson Davis set the tone. Indiana found balanced scoring from the perimeter, and they win this game 79-74. LaVall, your takeaway from a rivalry win for the Hoosiers over Purdue?
Yeah, one, it's hard to play in Bloomington. So that's the first win against number 1 since 2013. I was on the other bench in 2013 when we were number 1 at Michigan and went to Indiana and lost. And it's an environment for college basketball. It's the loudest game I've ever coached in, to be honest. It's 17,000 in there. They can't wait. I was curious if they were going to rush the court or not, because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when you knock off number 1, and they played, what have they won? 6 out of the last 7. They've been playing really well. And Trace Jackson Davis, he's on another level right now. And I agree with you, John. He set the tone. And I thought Trey Galloway was important. Just his hustle, grit, his defense on the guards from Purdue, that was a big factor in the game. But, the environment, you got Dick Vitale, you got the environment, you got, Indiana basketball. So it was a good day for college. That rivalry, because Purdue had beat them 9 straight times until last year. And so, I'm sure they were tired of reading about the Boilermakers. We've been talking about the Boilermakers, ad nauseum, and they're really good. And you don't feel any different about Purdue. They're still really good. Zach Edey's still went for 33 and 18. I mean,
a cool 33 and 18, LaVall. 33 and
like,
18 on 15 for 19 from the floor, man. Like
it was unreal.
He's a beast. You know who really stood out to me? And I've kind of made this point before, but Jalen Hood-Schifino, when he plays well, I think that takes Indiana to a different level because it opens a lot of things up. They have the ability now to put the ball in a playmaker's hands, put shooters around them, and kind of run these ball screens where they just kind of either get Hood-Schifino get into his right hand, and he loves that little midi pull-up, or you got Trace Jackson Davis like rolling to the basket. There's nobody better in college basketball than catching a lob or bringing a ball. Like that dude's hands are so strong. Did you see the play today where he drove on 80 and tried to dunk on him, realized he wasn't going to dunk it, and then floated down and tried to lay it in over his head? Like how you keep control of the ball like that? Just his hands are so strong.
When he gets to his right hand pull up, I mean it's a big time shot, and you know, analytically you say, yeah, layups and threes, but I'm just telling you, you know, guys I've coached and players, if you can take 1-2 dribbles and jump up and just shoot it in, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. And he has that.
Yeah, and it's especially important against teams that are going to play drop coverage, and that's what Purdue does. That's what Zach Edey's going to do. I thought just a terrific performance from Indiana all around. Here's what I'm really interested in, and LaVall, you probably can answer this better than Fanta or I can. Xavier Johnson's probably going to end up coming back at some point, right? That's kind of that's what it sounds like. You figured things out with this Indiana team. Jalen Hood-Schifino was playing the lead guard role and thriving in that role. Trace Jackson Davis has turned into an absolute monster playing. Zach Edey's going to be the player of the year. Trace Jackson Davis is playing at a player of the year level right now. When you bring Xavier Johnson back, he's kind of a ball dominant guy. He's a big personality. He's someone that's going to be expecting shots. How do you work that in? Like, it's going to be complicated and it's going to be difficult, and people are going to have to make sacrifices. But how have you ever dealt with something like that as a coach? And how do you process that? How do you get this guy back in so you don't fall off if you're Indiana?
I'm trying to think if we had a guy out that long. And I don't know, you know, we brought Jordan Tucker in when we were at Butler at semester, which was, you know, it's always a unique situation because everybody kind of finds it smooth air, right? And so he's going to have to accept maybe a different role on the way back in. You know, he's one of their best defenders on the perimeter, so he has that already. But in terms of playmaking and scoring, you know, with Hood-Schifino rolling the way he's rolling, I thought Miller Kopp made, you know, he kind of found his stroke today. And with playing through Trace, the way that they're playing through Trace now, you know, he's going to have to get in where he fit in. But he'll have a role just because he's such a good defender. And you know that. But it takes a second, I think, for everybody to get used to playing with, you know, with him again, or for him to fit in, you know, find where he fits in with the group.
Here's the thing. I think that today's a positive for Purdue because along the way, there's something to be said about losing a game and taking certain things from it that you got exposed for, and that you can truly say there's a motivational factor the next time you come out to get better. Because sometimes there's a saying of like, well, when you win close over a lesser opponent, that's the best kind of game because you still won the game. Like sometimes you got to take your lump in college basketball. Alabama did it a week ago. All right, to Oklahoma, to a team that Alabama probably beats Oklahoma 90 to 95 times out of 100 this year. But on that day last Saturday, they lost. Purdue didn't get their doors blown off. And frankly,
and they could have.
Frankly, they could have. Halfway through, when Indiana puts up 50 in a half on Purdue, you're sitting there saying, if you're the Boilermakers, past Matt Painter teams lose today by 20. Because Matt Painter said it. This team's different because they defend at a very high level. Purdue did not give up a three in the second half. Okay, Indiana did not hit a single three-pointer in the second half, and that's a big picture concern I still have with the Hoosiers, because from the perimeter they can go hot and cold, and when it gets cold, it gets very cold. But to me, guys, you know, is there not, LaVall, a psychological effect of 22-1, 20-1. They're the best team. There's no question about it. And I know you feed off that, but is there a part of this where, look, we all know that Purdue's on the number one line for an NCAA tournament spot. There's an argument to say that they would still be the number one overall seed after this loss. Like, how much good can come of this, knowing Matt Painter, knowing who Purdue is, that they didn't lose this game by 15-20? Yeah, you don't want to lose, but the way that they played this game, the way that they out-rebounded Indiana by 16.
Yeah, I don't think, John, listen, the freshmen were freshmen on the road in terms of shooting the back, not their courage. Like they played fearless as they've been playing all year. They just didn't make the shots. Fletcher Lawyer was 1 for 6 from 3. Braden Smith was 1 for 8 from the floor, but it wasn't like they were afraid. They just didn't make them. If they do, it's a whole different ball game. I think what they take down 15, Zach Edey to start the second half, they just threw it in and threw it in and threw it in. He scored like 8 points before the media timeout to get him back in the game. And that's what he can do for you. I think the formula is the same if you have a chance to beat Purdue. Rutgers has it. If you can press Edey up and get him away from the basket as far as you can, which is easier said than done, and pressure them and disrupt their sets, disrupt their stuff. I thought Indiana's perimeter pressure, bothered them and kind of got them out of their stuff. They played more pick and roll with Braden in it. And so that's kind of the formula to have. You got to have somebody that can press him up like Trey. So you're not down on Purdue. It's, on a night like that, do the young guys, if we're going to put Braden in the pick and roll and play that way because we're getting pressed out of our actions, he's going to grow out of being 1 for 8. And I don't think he'll have too many nights like that, but that was kind of what it was today in terms of, the plan of attack to beat him.
The thing that was most impressive to me, and honestly, I'm a little bit, I feel better about Purdue now than maybe I did before the game. Everyone's going to get punched in the mouth, right? It's college basketball. You're playing on the road. You go into a building like what Assembly Hall was today. There's going to be times where you just get punched in the mouth, and Purdue got punched in the mouth in the first half. You know what they did? They came out in the second half. They said, we're going to do what we do, and we're going to find a way to claw our way back. And I think they cut it to 1 in the second half. Right?
They had a chance to take the lead, a couple times.
Yeah, they cut it to 1. You can't ask for any more than that. And I was so impressed with the team, with the way that they played in the second half. And, it's no one's going to go undefeated this year. No one's going to go undefeated in the Big Ten. The Big Ten might be down a little bit overall, but it's still a very, very good league with a lot of really difficult home courts. Purdue got punched in the mouth and they fought back.
And 8 or 9 NCAA tournament teams. I mean, at the end of the day, your depth is there. The Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball, but the Big 10, for its depth, every night you're going up against, for the most part, almost every night you're going up against somebody that on their best day is good enough to be playing in the NCAA tournament. And I think LaVall, big picture here, the marathon, right? You get to February. What's the dynamic of coaching a team in the month of February? I remember you and Butler, you had it rolling. Top 5 in America, had a great team. Like, what's the dynamic when you're coaching a great team to say when the calendar turns to February, how do we not drop off what we've been doing? But also, how do I have this team fully ready to go so that somehow we could play our best basketball when the calendar does turn to that conference tournament and the NCAA tournament? What's the science at this point in the season for a coach?
Yeah, you're shortening up, the things you're doing. You're just trying to be more efficient with your time, knowing, you're traveling in conference play and with classes and everything else. You're back in school now. Christmas break's over, the break's over. You're now back in class. You're on the road, a couple games a week, sometimes 9 o'clock tip. Sometimes you're getting back at 3 a.m. So it's as much, managing the fatigue, not necessarily, on the court and playing the games, but just all the stuff in between that kind of wears you out. So you're trying to just be efficient with your practices and not have information overload, but get in what you need to get in to keep guys fresh mentally and physically. And I think the mental part they get talked about enough because, you know, you sit in a long film session, you can wear you out and as much as practicing for 2 hours.
Are you saying that you have guys falling asleep when you're doing film sessions, LaVall? Is that what you're telling me here?
And that's the balance, because as a coach, you need to get in. You want to get in what you want to get in, but you're trying to, you know, be mindful of the fact that guys are tired, and you want to keep them fresh, because at some point, energy trumps strategy. It's like, hey, Purdue played with great energy to start the second half, and they just did what it's not about. Let's just do what we do, like Rob said, and do it with great energy.
Rob, before I get to the rest of the Big Ten, how much would you be willing to put in the pot for Indiana in the NCAA tournament? Let's just say make the second weekend.
Well, here's my big question.
Okay.
If Xavier Johnson comes back,
yep,
and it works, right? If Xavier Johnson comes back and it works, and Hood Schifino and Xavier Johnson can be like your dynamic duo of playmaking guards, and you have Trace Jackson Davis at the 5, and you put guys like Miller Kopp and Tamar Bates and Trey Galloway, and you have guys that can space the floor around them at the 3 and the 4 spot. You rotate Race Thompson in there, you get Malik Renault in there. All of a sudden, you have a whole bunch of different looks, but the 2 things you have that are important is a big guy that can take over a game, and those 2 playmaking point guards that can both kind of play on the ball or off the ball. They have all of the pieces for what you look for a Final Four team. They have all the pieces for what you look for a team that can make a run. Now, the key is going to be the chemistry. You get a guy like Xavier Johnson back that can mess things up just because you change the hierarchy, right? You figured it out here over the last 3 weeks. Then you bring a guy back who kind of changes the hierarchy. If that works and you can work him in and you have everybody on the same page, like Indiana to me is a legit, they can make a Final Four. They could also lose in the second round, but they have the horses to be able to make a run to the Final Four. And I don't think that I'm speaking out of turn when I say that.
Yeah, if they defend the way they've been defending, you know, the last 2-3 weeks, yeah, second weekend, John, when you say that, like their defense can carry them there if they continue that.
They could beat you multiple ways, LaVall. Like that's what you need to be a really good team. You have to be able to win on nights when you're not making your shots.
Now, you know, do they have enough firepower? Can they make enough perimeter shots from the perimeter? You know, you know, that could carry them further if they have, you know, they got to have some guys have some nights in the run. But their defense right now is what's got them back in it. I mean, you know, maybe outside of the Iowa game, it's been like, you know, tremendous.
Let's hit on the Big Ten before we go to the big rivalry game on Tobacco Road. Rutgers beats Michigan State 61-55 at Madison Square Garden. Cliff Omori, Paul Mulcahy lead the way. Iowa defeats Illinois. Illinois had won 7 of their last 8. Tony Perkins was absolutely fantastic today. 32 points. Hawkeyes win 81-79. Maryland blows out Minnesota 81-46. Robert Dauster, when you look around the Big Ten elsewhere from the main game we just talked about, who stood out to you the most on this fine Saturday?
I thought it was a great win for Iowa. They beat an Illinois team that had a little bit of drama heading into that game with the Orange Crush getting denied their tickets for the Boys and Girls Club. I'm glad that was a weird situation. I'm glad that it worked out well, and you know they gave some kids a chance to go see a game like that. That was a fun game. Tony Perkins was awesome, but look, we got to start talking about Maryland. Like we got to start paying attention to them. They've won 4 in a row. That included a win over Wisconsin, a win over Nebraska, and a win over the Indiana Hoosiers, who I just put in the Final Four, right? I don't know what happened with them. I don't know what clicked, but it seems like it's starting to work for Kevin Willard down there. And the one big thing, LaVall, is though he's got pieces with that Maryland team, right? And the reason why I like them and Illinois to a point in March is that they are the teams that can match up with programs outside of the Big Ten. It feels like everybody in the Big Ten's got like 1 6'11", 260-pound monster.
Hey,
right?
Rob.
Yeah.
Rob, once upon a time, LaVall Jordan was mic'd up, commercial-free, against Kevin Willard. And I guarantee you that LaVall and Kevin's pregame conversation contains some words from one of the head coaches that were not safe for television.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin struggled with being mic'd up all access more than I did. Let's just say that.
What makes him good? What's allowed him to step in at Maryland, in your estimation? And make it work.
That's a good question. Just here's where Kevin's really good, in my opinion, is one, he's not afraid to change up, especially defensively. What's best for his team in the moment and big picture. And so I think that's what he's done with the Maryland group. You always have some coaches are just principle based. We're going to do what we do, point blank, period. Well, Kevin, he'll change it up, and he'll change it up in the game and stick with what's working, whether it's zone, whether it's his 3/4 court press to get back, or switch he'll just find what's working. And then two, he highlights his best player as good as anybody, like whether it's Miles Powell, with Sandro, Mamuski, it's like whoever.
What was that name?
I don't even know how to say Mamu. But whoever his guy
you got about halfway through that name, and I was like, "Oh, he's gonna say it." No,
I couldn't get the finish. I could get halfway, 50%. But he does, like, Kevin puts his best guys in their best positions for them and gives them freedom, which promotes ultimate confidence. And so, what he's doing right now is that I think he's kind of figured his team out and figured out what he needs to do with them. And now, they're executing better here in this moment. They'll have a tough stretch to finish, but he's got it working the way he wants. And now they believe, right? And what they were on 4 or 5 in a row. They go to Michigan State next, but they got to believe. Yeah. And to Rob's point, they're different than the Big Ten. Like, there's not a lot of changing defenses in the Big Ten. Fran does it some at Iowa. He'll mix in some zone, some 3/4 court press. But
when Fran mixing up defenses is okay, we're not going to play defense now. Now we might try a little bit on the defensive end. Now we're not going to play defense anymore. Okay, now we're going to try a little bit. Iowa's the one team in the Big Ten where it's like, yeah, you're going to have to score 85 if you want to beat them. Defense optional.
Yeah.
Peter Rabbit, man. I love it though. Look, I wish more coaches embrace this idea of, you know what, defense is overrated. Let's get buckets.
Sure. I like that. And you know what? A parting thought on Maryland. It's cool to have Maryland relevant.
Mm-hmm.
To have them in the equation, in the picture. That's a great fan base. Terps fans are fun. College Park has some vibes. Shout out SVP. I know he's excited. And a parting thought on the Big Ten, because we got to transition here. Today, I got a firsthand experience of America's biggest nightmare team to go up against. Rutgers is college basketball's nightmare team for an opponent.
It's sitting in the dentist chair.
Sit in the dentist chair. And a New Jersey dentist comes at you. Let me tell you. Because my fiance is a dental hygienist.
Oh, boy.
And these teeth, yeah, all right? There was some blood earlier this week in the dental chair. Rutgers puts you in the dental chair. And they are going to fight you tooth and nail. The Scarlet Knights are legit. They lost Geo Baker and Ron Harper Jr., and they have just reloaded. Cliff Amore is a man's man. Paul Mulcahy belongs in an Irish pub, and he's playing college basketball. This team is special. Caleb McConnell might be the best defensive player in America. Rutgers should be ranked on Monday, and they need to be taken seriously because they are all alone in second place in the Big Ten at 8-4, and had the officials done things correctly, they'd be 9-3 because they should have won that game at Ohio State. The Scarlet Knights 7 years ago were 7-25. 7-25. They're going to go in their third straight NCAA tournament for the first time in program history.
They won at Purdue.
Yes.
That's all you need. They won at Purdue. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. We can move on.
Bingo. Let's move on. Let's move on. Hey, come on, chat. There's 400 people watching. There's only 40 likes. Let's go, people. That chat's got to fire up here. I'm pumping you guys up tonight. This is the Saturday night version of After Dark. Either you're going to bring your A game or you can go to bed and get your milk. Get your warm glass of milk and go to sleep. What do you want to do?
I brought my B game.
That's right.
Bourbon.
That's right. You want to get the chest hairs popping or you want a warm glass of milk? Come on. Let's put our A game on. Let's put our A game on for Duke, Carolina. All right. Tobacco Road, Shire Davis, new chapter of the rivalry. Final score, Duke 63, North Carolina 57. The Blue Devils get it done at Cameron Indoor. Rob Dauster, your biggest takeaway.
Whew. Derek Lively has arrived. I thought that he was absolutely tremendous tonight. He provided a level of toughness on the interior. He provided a rebounding presence. When he is at his best, he's as good of a rim protector as you're going to find in the ACC. He is a guy that can space the floor a little bit. I know he hasn't really shot the three well this year, but that was kind of what he did on the recruiting circuit, right? That's what he did when he was in high school. He has that ability. But he's really bought into this idea of kind of being a defensive stalwart, right? Look, I'm going to be the guy that makes sure that nothing gets finished around the bucket. You guys get out and press on the perimeter. You make their life difficult. If you get beat, I got you. I'm erasing everything around here. He did work on the glass. He had like 3 or 4 huge offensive rebounds. There were 2 putback dunks that he had, and he had like 2 that he grabbed and he kicked it right back out for open threes, which are like, they're just so, those are, when you get a stop and then you get a rebound and you get a kick out, like those are momentum plays. What do you call them? Energy plays? Something like whatever coach speak you want to use there for that. Those plays matter. And when you're playing against a Duke team that is going to defend like this, you need to have somebody like a Derek Lively in that role, in the paint. And it was nice to see him kind of take a step forward, because he hasn't had a great year, LaVall. Like he's when you come in with the expectation of being like the number 1 or number 2 player in the class and you don't live up to it, like that could be hard on the kid mentally. So I'm happy to see him have a big day on a big moment on a big stage on ESPN in one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports. So good for him, man. That was what we needed to see.
Yeah, he was tremendous. He was tremendous. My takeaway, John, from it was guards. It's still a guards game. Jeremy Roach was fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, he took command of that game, and he was absolutely fantastic. It was just his demeanor, his poise. You just saw it wasn't like a big deal what he was doing. He came to get work done, and I thought he was pretty surgical. John went to him late. Had a nice ghost action. He went to laid it in. He had a couple mid-range pull-ups. Like he was tremendous. He was absolutely tremendous. And the Carolina guards were, they weren't efficient. They were aggressive, but it was, they were 5 for 15, 5 for 16. And so I think, your guard efficiency, Jeremy, was good. We were talking about the guards from Indiana. It's like, hey, we can the big guys are great. But Jeremy Roach, he's the guy that closed it for him.
Yeah, I thought it was really noteworthy that at the end of the game, the play that Shire called was specifically to try to get a lane for Jeremy Roach to go make a play. That's something that stood out to me. You know what else stood out to me? If you go back and look at the play-by-play, you go back and look at the box score.
Yeah.
The last shot that Armando Bacot got in this game was with 12 minutes and 47 seconds left in the second half. He went 12 minutes and 47 seconds on the road in a rivalry game in something. I don't want to call this like a must win for North Carolina, because that's a complete overstatement, but in a game that program really, really needed, right? He didn't get a touch for the last 12 minutes and 47 seconds. He didn't get a shot for the last 12 minutes and 47 seconds. At some point, you think that this group is going to figure out that, like, we are at our best when we throw it to the big fella and it comes back out, because he'll pass it out. He's not afraid to do that. Give him his touches, work it through the paint, and then play inside out. Like, it just
as much as anything, Rob, it's about efficient. Like, you look at the game and they were 57 points on 64 possessions, right? And so you're talking just efficient basketball. He was 50% from the field. So you go there as much as possible. And the other part is they shot 3 free throws.
Fouls, yes.
For the whole game. That was the it's like deciding factor. Duke makes 11 free throws. North Carolina only shoots 3. But you know how many times you get fouled just fighting?
How do you fix this? Like, if you're Hubert, how do you, because it's a fine line here, right? You made the run to the national title game because you kind of let your guards rock, and they got hot in March. But I think what we've seen is, like, Caleb Love and RJ Davis and Caleb Love specifically, they haven't put it together outside of that run in March for a 2-year sample size. So, like, how do you balance this idea that we don't want to take the confidence away from these guys? They can be absolute game changers, but also find a way to get them to like buy in, right? Is it just put them on the bench? Is it say, Caleb,
Well,
look, if you're
as
going to
Put him
do
on
this,
the
you can't
bench.
play?
For who?
John was
Who are you going to
asking.
put in the game?
John was asking, you just how do you're trying to trend towards playing your best later in the year, and so you got to talk to your team about our best version and our most efficient, because they got pieces. Leaky Black made threes today. That was huge for them. He was 50% from the field, and he made some big. He missed the big one. He had a great look in the corner, but to be efficient, right? If they're just an efficient basketball team, good luck, right? Because that means they're probably getting to the foul line 18 to 22 times a game, and their points per possession is going to be around 1, because they're not taking as many tough twos or long, contested threes. And so, how do you get them there? Is education and buy-in, but I think you don't want to take away their aggression. Those guys, because we've seen what they can do when they're aggressive.
Okay, so you know how you said how you fix this? Remember at the start of the show when we were talking about 4th grade girls CYO basketball?
Oh,
let me take you back to St. Bernadette in Westlake, Ohio, when I was in the 4th and 5th and 6th grade. All right, and I lived off of a mixture of mom's pork chops at night. Okay, and a lot of baseline jumpers taken in practice. But when I was on the team, know where the hell the ball is supposed to go.
That helps.
Give your best player the ball. My advice to Hubert Davis is take Caleb Love and RJ Davis to church, because what you're going to say to them after is not appropriate. This is ridiculous. North Carolina, how do you fix it? You fix it by not benching guys, by telling them to get their stuff together. Under no circumstances should RJ Davis and Caleb Love be taking a combined 31 shots and Armando Bacot takes 12. It's unacceptable, inexcusable. If you have an All-American on your team, you don't not feed him. Let Bacot eat. This is not hard. How do you fix it? You fix it by taking those two guys aside and saying, do you not recognize who the best player on this team is?
Well, that's the core of the issue.
Know your role.
That's the core of the issue, is that Caleb Love specifically probably thinks that he is the best player on that team. And I don't know if anything's going to get through to him to tell him otherwise. I think he's the most dangerous player on the team. How many other guys on this roster? How many other guys in college basketball right now could go for 27.5 in the Final Four? There's not many. There's not many.
That's great, but Armando Bacot had a double-double in every NCAA tournament game.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Which is, by
the way, here's the other thing. You want to know what Carolina's problem is? Pete Nance hasn't even been 25% of what Brady Manick was to Carolina.
Yeah,
Pete Nance tonight. Pete Nance, I'm sorry, Pete, but I think you're a good player. Love your pops. Love your brother. Love the Nance family. Loyal Cavs fan here. The fact of the matter is this. You shot 1 of 10 tonight and 0 of 5 from 3. That can't happen. Okay,
it's not going to do it.
That's not going to do it.
Yeah, part of that though, John, is part of that is just flow, right? Like when you're in flow, those shots come in a rhythm, versus when guys are dominating the ball, or when it's choppy, like especially for a guy that doesn't create his own, if that makes sense.
It does, but North Carolina's been the most frustrating team in college basketball, in my humble opinion, because this team was in a national championship game, and they feel a little bit like a broken record here as the season's gone on. When you have an All-American talent, he's only taken 12 shots, and what'd you say? In the last 12 minutes of the game, he didn't take a single shot? I find that hard to believe, and frankly, I find that inexcusable. You got to get your bet. If you got Armando Bacot and the other team doesn't, use Armando. All right, ACC here. As the day finishes up, Clemson 10-3 at the top, even though they've lost back-to-back games. Then you got Virginia and Pitt at 9-3. You got NC State, Miami at 9-4. Like, it's wild to think that here Clemson is first place in their league, Bobby D, and they're a team that's on the bubble. But that's where we're at in the ACC. What do you make of the ACC? I think NC State's better than North Carolina myself.
Well, because they understand how to get the ball to the big fella.
Yeah.
You know, they know how to let DJ Burns eat, and DJ Burns is the kind of guy that seems like he really likes to eat. I would love to go over for Thanksgiving to DJ Burns' house. I bet, you know, his family, the cooking there slaps. My biggest takeaway with the ACC is I think that some of the struggles of the teams that we thought were going to be good have kind of ruined. I don't want to say ruined. That's probably too strong, but they've taken out some of these resumes, right? Like Virginia Tech is a really, really good team. They are probably, when healthy, a top 25 to 35 kind of a team in college basketball. Hunter Couture is back and he's playing well. Sean Padula was really, really good tonight. Between Grant Vasily and Justin Mutz, like they have two big guys that can space the floor and can pass and can be versatile. And like, you let Mike Young have that kind of offense and let him run all the stuff that he loves to run. They are a really, really difficult team, and they beat Virginia tonight. But they also had some injuries. They had some rough luck with players being eligible and getting back and then getting hurt. And they're finally starting to figure out who they are. Same thing with like Florida State, right? They had so many injuries at the start of the season that now they're getting some wins. It kind of drags down some of these other resumes. So it's going to be a fun conference to track as the season goes on. But I'm in on Virginia Tech, guys. Is that crazy? Like I think that they're going to end up making the NCAA tournament. I'd be very surprised if they don't. They have 3 quadrant 1 wins, 6 wins in the top 2 quadrants, 6 and 8 against the top 2 quadrants, and only 1 like kind of questionable loss at Boston College. Yeah, it's good. It's a wild league. How crazy is this? Clemson at 10-3 in first place in the conference, all alone in first place in the ACC, might be on the wrong side of the bubble. While Virginia Tech, who is 4-8 in the league, I'm sitting here saying, yeah, they got to be in the tournament. That's wild when you think about it.
And I don't know if I mean, they put up 70. You know how hard it is to put up 74 points on Virginia? Like they put up 74 points on Virginia tonight. Like I don't know if that's been done all year. That's hard. Just with their defense and as stingy as they are. Here's a question for you, John. Like when I was looking through schedule, Pittsburgh's schedule, like right now, they have left Louisville, Florida State, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Miami. Pittsburgh gonna win the ACC?
They might. They might.
The zoo is back.
They're good. They
are good.
Just got talent. He's got dudes. They've always and Chris Mack made this point the other night. They've always been like this team that plays tough and plays physical and has a certain mentality that I think Capel brings out. And now he's partnered that with like having dudes too. And
yeah, they have a team.
Yeah, they got players, they got guys that can go get you a bucket. And like they had a group that was like this. I want to say, was it 2019 or 2020 when they had one of the Champagnes and they had Xavier Johnson and they had a bunch of guys and they kind of fell out and half that team ended up transferring out of the program. But they got talent, man. They're good. Like I don't know what their metrics are not great, but that's a good basketball team when you watch them play. One that they bought, right? Fanta?
Well, that's where we head next because here tonight, Pete Thamel of ESPN, Pete does a great job for the worldwide leader, has reported that Syracuse's Jim Boeheim, quote, probably returning for the 2023-24 season. Boeheim at age 78, 47th year at Syracuse, obviously one of the game's all-time greats. Says in this report that he acknowledges that he's heard chatter about his retirement for well over a decade, all very true. He told ESPN tonight, I have no other plans. Listen, this has been the question of the day for 15 years. This isn't a new question. It's just the calendar going, well, he's 78. It's just the calendar. If it wasn't the calendar, if I was 65, no one would be saying anything. Okay, Jim. Also in the piece, he says, and I quote, this is an awful place we're in college basketball. Now, mind you, he's coming back. He goes on to say, Pittsburgh bought a team. Okay, fine. My big donor talks about it, but he doesn't give anyone any money. Nothing. Not one guy. Our guys make like $20,000. Wake Forest bought a team. Miami bought a team. It's like, really? This is where we are? That's really where we are? And it's only going to get worse. LaVall Jordan, the coach's perspective. Your reaction, some of those comments made from Jim Boeheim.
One, when I'm 78, as you say, coach was 78. God bless him. I don't know, John, if I'm coming back if I'm 78. But that tells you he loves it. So I can't, I guess NIL there is now, but I don't want to sit there and act like nobody's been bought before in the world of college athletics.
Hey, I'll say it. Did Carmelo Anthony go to Syracuse for
I'm not there. I mean, I'm not pointing and accusing anybody specifically, but just in general, things have happened that haven't been on the up. But coach wants it's the other thing is it's talking to coaches across, constantly. It's a factor. Like, I don't know if coaches anticipated how much of a factor it would be, but it's a huge factor, especially in the transfer market, I think.
I mean, I do think some of this is going to regulate too, right? At some point, either the NCAA or Congress or someone's going to find a way to kind of get control of it. They already had that change that came out last week where now they're going to be able to, when you go after cases where a collective and NIL stuff is involved, you are now going to be presumed guilty instead of presumed innocent, which kind of rankled some feathers with the way that they're phrasing it. But it's the NCAA is made up of the schools, and the school administrators decided that, hey, look, we can't trust anybody to police ourselves, so we're going to put these rules in place to try to find a way to clean this stuff up. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's something where they're trying to get to. I do think that it is interesting. One, that he says Wake Forest bought a team because, Wake Forest does not have like the NIL collective kind of a setup that a lot of other programs do. It's something that has frustrated them there. I also think I don't know why you're going to go to ESPN.com and publicly bash like your biggest donor, the guy that was just on national television for getting like Jalen Hurts to a game. Maybe that's what it is. He's frustrated that he's getting Jalen Hurts to show up courtside instead of making sure that his players actually get a little bit of money, that they get some NIL stuff. I don't know. I think it's crazy that he would come out here and say this, but he's like is there anybody else right now, LaVall, that can get away with saying something like that? I mean,
no,
Coach K could have.
Tom Izzo.
Tom Izzo probably.
Coach, those the guys that have been doing it long enough to be able to say that. And he's just, I don't think Coach has ever held back as long as I've been, watching him and paying attention. So there's that.
Look, he's 78. All right. And I know what he said about how it's the biggest question every year. Well, tonight, he basically confirmed it. At this point, he's going to have to either be removed as the head coach or he's going to pass away in the chair. Now, he's earned that right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's earned that right. He's the face of Syracuse basketball. He's synonymous with it. We could talk about whether or not he stayed in it too long, whatever. Here's the thing, Jim. You've never held back, all right? You've never held back. We got you. But by the same token, if you're going to say that the state of the sport is awful, and yet you're coming back to collect a paycheck every 2 weeks, I'm sorry, I really can't have any feelings towards you. Because at the end of the day, you're Syracuse. And the schools that you're describing, like Wake Forest and Pittsburgh, you're Syracuse. You should be better than those schools in that department. It's all free game. So, and I would also just say, and I don't really care on this one, I find the latest conduct around some of the student media who are trying to get better at their craft to be unacceptable. And I think Jim Boeheim is one of the all-time great coaches in college basketball history. I want to make that very, 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 very clear. I think Jim is an all-timer, Hall of Famer, you name it. You could both say he's one of the all-time greats. And then somebody's got to get him right with how you talk to an 18 to 21-year-old kid.
Yeah, the way he treats the student media is just not fair. Like, these kids are
Not right.
trying to figure it out. And, like, if you're going to go out, look, the one that stood out to me, Benny Williams, guy that started like 20 games for you, isn't in uniform, isn't at a game, isn't on the bench. You say you're going to address it after the game. You go to your post-game press conference, a game that you lost. You don't say anything in the opening statement. And then one of the questions that comes out is about the guy that's not there, right? How are you surprised that that's what's coming up? Just, it's baffling to me. You don't need to. It's very easy to not be an asshole, right?
Well, yeah, and look, he's like Coach said, Jim Boeheim has never not been afraid to. He's never been afraid to share his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. It's refreshing, honestly. I enjoy listening to his thoughts on things, and sometimes he keeps it real, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But you know what? So you're gonna disparage the other members in your own league and say that they've done it the wrong way? I don't know. I'm not a fan of putting other programs down. That, to me, tells me that you probably didn't do well enough yourself. Again, you're Syracuse. You're talking about Wake Forest and Pitt.
How much of it, though, is that it's like when Nick Saban said something about A&M, it was more he was talking to his people,
Donors.
supporters.
Yes. Yeah, which that's what Rob's point. Rob brings up a great point. I mean, with the donor thing. All right. There's Jim Boeheim. Let's turn to the Big 12. The best conference in college basketball, the Big 12. Today, at the Octagon in the Little Apple, top 10 showdown between Texas and Kansas State. Got to be honest. This is the result that raised my eyebrows the most today in college basketball. Because for Texas to go in there, I know you have a look on your face, Rob. But for Texas to go in there and beat Kansas State, man, Rodney Terry could be argued as the best coach in this sport over the last 2 months because nobody's had to deal with the circumstances that he's had to deal with. The Longhorns are 19-4. They win 69-66 at Kansas State. What a win for Texas.
The job that he's done to be able to keep everybody engaged, right? Like, how often do you see interim coaches show up and it turns into, you got the substitute teacher and, teaching class. He's got, like, there hasn't been a let off at all. In fact, you can probably make the argument they're playing better with Rodney Terry there than they were under Chris Beard. And with how tough that this conference is, with how difficult the Big 12 is, to be heading into Fog Allen Fieldhouse with a 1-game lead still in the league is something that is just so incredibly impressive. Like, Jerome Tang has got to be in the conversation for National Coach of the Year. TJ Otzelberger has got to be in the conversation for National Coach of the Year. Matt Painter, probably going to end up being the National Coach of the Year because of what they've done there. But I don't know how Rodney Terry doesn't at least get a mention somewhere, right? Like, if we're doing a first-team All-America coaches, RT's got to be on there somewhere, because when you can do that, when you are not the guy that everybody committed to, when you are not the voice that you were normally expected to hear, when you are not the guy that put together the roster, right? You are not the guy that Texas decided they were going to invest all this money in to be able to try to rebuild their basketball program, and you step in unexpectedly and keep it going. Like, I can't say enough about the job that he's done at Texas. And, I'll be very interested to see. There's still a lot of time left and a lot of basketball left to be played. But if things kind of carry out and you finish somewhere in like the top 2 or 3 of the Big 12, and you don't lose in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, you don't lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament, I don't know how he doesn't get the job. I don't know how he doesn't get the full-time job. I think he's done enough to prove that he at least deserves a shot, right? Is that crazy? Because it doesn't feel like there's that buzz. No?
Yeah, I think if they, it'd be hard not to, in my opinion, it'd be the right thing to do. Because Rodney has a lot of pride in Texas. He was there for 9 years as assistant. I mean, when you start talking about guys like Boobie Gibson, LaMarcus Aldridge, TJ Ford, Kevin Durant, Avery Bradley, Tristan Thompson, like he's there and involved with all of those guys from a recruiting standpoint, from a relationship standpoint. Like those guys they would probably be extremely excited if Rodney Terry's named, the full-time head coach. You got, that alumni base and all those guys, PJ Tucker, back. So he's got a huge amount of pride in the program. He's been there. He helped, for that era, really had an integral part in it. He has 10, 11 years of head coaching experience. It's not like, he was some rookie that hasn't done it before. And he's got the current locker room, right? He's done a tremendous job of leveraging those relationships to get those guys to do what they're doing now.
So, LaVall, that's the complicating factor to me here. It's twofold. One, all these guys in the locker room, how many of them are gone after this year, right? Like he's got a bunch of seniors, a bunch of fifth-year seniors, a couple guys that may end up going pro. Dylan Mitchell's probably a one-and-done kind of a player, right? So it's not like you're going to have that same group back. And we have enough of a sample size of him as a head coach where if he was currently right now at UTEP, right, and someone else was the interim coach and the same thing happened, and you came to the end of the season, you had to make the hire, based off of his resume as a head coach, I don't think that he gets on that list. So that's to me where it's kind of like, well, look, the job that he's done means that he should get that. Like he deserves a bare minimum to be like involved in whatever like the finalist interviews is that you do. Maybe he deserves the job. At the same time, if he wasn't currently in that job, I don't think that he'd be getting a call. So it's like, I understand why some people at Texas might be a little bit hesitant, but based off of what he's done and the ability he's done, even if it's something as simple as give him like a contract with a small buyout, right? You got to give him a shot if this continues. Now, if the bottom falls out and they end up losing every game from now on, and you end up finishing like sixth in the Big 12,
that's not going to happen.
It's a different conversation. I don't think that's going to end up happening. I think that they are for real.
I got to tell you something.
In those instances, it's like, did Steve Fisher deserve the job at Michigan?
Probably not. And he won a national title, which is
Brad Stevens. Did Brad Stevens deserve the job at Butler? Like he'd never been a head coach before, but he was there. He was an integral part of the program, and so he just kind of continued on and built it up to another level. Which I know Texas, what are the expectations and what do they want, and in terms of the administration, I don't know the answer to that, but there's examples out there of a guy getting an opportunity and running with it.
He's earned a shot at it. That's all I'll say. He's earned a shot at it.
It's kind of interesting and ironic that following the Chris Beard saga and fallout, I would argue that Texas has been one of the quietest teams in terms of drama, and they've been actually not talked about the way a top 10 team would be talked about because of the fact that the Beard storyline has ruled so much. And yet these kids have just kept their heads down. They've kept working. This staff has unlocked something with this team. They've steadily gotten better. It's the power of seniors, quite obviously, as LaVall has brought up. But I really do think that there's some irony to a team that dealt with the distraction of all distractions in losing their head coach during the season. And since all of that, they've been one of the least talked about actual teams for how good they are in college basketball. And they just keep winning. It's almost as if Rodney Terry and staff have utilized all of that drama and said to their guys, you know what? Everyone thinks you're going to fall off a cliff. Show them that you're tougher than that. Don't give in to the pressure. That's at least the way that I see it here as we take this out on Field of 68 After Dark. For our producer, Dagan Hughes, and for Rob Dauster, for LaVall Jordan, we thank you for joining us tonight. And we're back with you tomorrow night, as we are every single night on the Field of 68. Thanks for joining us.
It's the afters. It's the afters.
The afters.
It's the afters.
The
We had to cut it off a little early. For the chat that's listening right now, we had to cut it off a little bit early because we are not live on Sirius tonight. It'll be recorded and it'll be put on Sirius starting hopefully in about 5 minutes, depending on how quickly producer Dagan Hughes can turn this thing around. So
wait, producer Dagan, what's going on?
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. I'm just enjoying the talk, you know.
So Jacob Petruzzi just asked in the chat here. This is the first question I'm seeing. Let's take your questions right now. Jacob says, Fanta, Dauster, LaVall. Is UConn a Final Four team? Rob? So that gives Rob an opening here. UConn beat Georgetown today.
Do we want to go into the Rodney Terry interview?
Yeah, but so we have an interview we didn't get to play on the show.
Yeah. What do you want to do? You tell me what to do. I can give my spiel here and I can keep it quick.
Are you really gonna keep it quick?
Probably not. So why don't you go to RT?
All right, that's what we call a tease. So coming up, Rob Dauster gives his updated UConn forecast. But before we get to that, Rodney Terry joined us from the hotel, in Kansas. That's right. Texas is still in Kansas because they're going to meet the Jayhawks after meeting the Wildcats. They stayed out on the road. Here's our conversation with the interim head coach of the Longhorns, who's done an amazing job with this team. Enjoy it. Nobody in college basketball has led like Rodney Terry has led over the last 2 months. And tonight, his Texas Longhorns are celebrating a great win over the Kansas State Wildcats. They go into the Octagon, and they win it 69-66 over Kansas State. Rodney is joining us here on Field of 68 After Dark. Coach, congratulations on a win over a top 10 Kansas State team. What did it take from your group, and what did you learn about your group today?
Well, Joe, for one, I've got a great staff working behind me. Experienced staff, a staff that does a great job of having our guys prepared every day in practice, every night in games, putting the guys in the best position from a game playing standpoint, offensively and defensively. We got off to an okay start today, not a great start today. One, we were playing in an incredible environment against a really, really good team, well-coached team at their home. And, we didn't do a great job of taking care of the basketball early, was something that we placed emphasis on, and we didn't do a great job. We had 11 turnovers in the first half. We missed a lot of, point-blank shots early as well. I thought we still guarded pretty hard, though, and we closed out the half the right way. We're down 11, so we're still in a pretty good position going into the half, with everything that happened.
RT, I got to ask you about Christian Bishop, man, off the bench. I think he had 14 in the second half. He had 5 offensive rebounds. He had a couple blocks. He obviously had the steal and a couple defensive plays that helped you guys win the game on that final defensive possession. How important is it for guys to kind of buy into that idea? It's like, look, I'm going to be the energy guy off the bench. Maybe I won't start, but there's going to be nights where I get 30 minutes and I'm, the hero in a road game against a top 10 team.
Rob, he's been a star in his position all year long, coming off the bench for us. He's a guy that comes in that can easily be a starter at other places, but he's bought into the whole team concept and the concept of being on a winning team and winning. His minutes today, even early in the game when he had some opportunities to score early in the game, he's really hard on himself, and we went in at half, and I thought he did a great job of hitting the reset button and came out in the second half and just gave us a tremendous lift on the offensive end in terms of scoring the ball, rebounding the ball, gave us a defensive presence as well, and was really a big difference maker for us today.
Yeah, Coach, I coached against Christian Bishop, so I know how good he can be as a starter and otherwise. So he's doing really well for you down there. Hey, take people through the minds, Coach, because I don't know, and I know, like, as an assistant coach, you've got, 12 years under your 11, 12 years as a head coach. You've been in both seats, but to have that happen in the middle of the season, and obviously your guys have responded tremendously, and you've led that charge, you and the staff together. But from a mindset standpoint, how did you handle that messaging with the group? There's enough noise with social media, with everything else, and then you have this, a huge distraction. But guys have remained focused. Take guys through your mindset and your message as that's happening.
Well, I think LaVall, for one, I think our staff again. I mean, we again collectively as a group, we're all on the same page. And I think from the very outset of this season, we're all on the same page of what we were trying to get accomplished this year with this group. I thought that, when everything did transpire the way it did, I thought everyone really kind of stuck together and really, took their games to another level in terms of what we were doing, from a responsibility wise. Really, also concentrated on our guys and keeping our guys in a great frame of mind every day with the right attitude and the right approach. The one thing I'll say in terms of working with Chris as well, he often a lot of times let us do a lot of coaching. So, the voices were heard at all times. It wasn't like it was the first time guys were hearing my voice, the first time they were hearing other guys on our staff's voice in terms of coaching and whether it be in practice or games. So we've had opportunities to be in front of the team on a regular basis, and I think that's really helped the transition in terms of keeping these guys staying the course and what we were trying to get done this season.
Coach, so you guys are in the midst of maybe the worst 4-game stretch in anywhere in college basketball this year. You were at Tennessee, then you get Baylor, then you're at Kansas State, and your award for winning at Kansas State is 2 days later. You got to go down the road to Lawrence and play in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Look, I don't know what's in that tea that you're drinking, but I hope that you have a couple throat lozenges, man, because you're going to need your voice.
No doubt about it. We just try to look at things again, Rob, what we have in front of us. And the message we try to have with our guys all year long is live where your feet are, control what you can control. And for us, it's been day to day in terms of trying to get better as a team. And when we go into games, we try to win every 4 minutes and work the game for 40 minutes and work each possession like it's our last possession. And I think that's boded well for us. I mean, we put the first 40 minutes together over in Knoxville. We knew it wasn't going to be easy against a really, really good team over there that's, extremely well coached by Rick Barnes. And then we knew we were going to come back on the road and play another, top 10 team on their home court, or back at our place rather with Baylor. And, it wasn't going to get any easier, coming over here to Manhattan against another top 10 team. So again, what we try to do is we try to never get too high, never get too low, but to have an even keel and to just try to, tackle what's in front of us.
We look forward to watching it. Rodney Terry, thanks for joining us on Field of 68 After Dark.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate
it. Man, Rodney Terry, LaVall, that was a really powerful interview. I mean, you got to feel good for the guy.
No question. Just thrown in that scenario. Nobody imagines that scenario. And for Rodney to do what he's done with it, I'm happy for him, thrilled for him. And I think the best is yet to come, like for the rest of the season.
As long as he gets some throat lozenges, just get that guy something for his voice, man. You got to get him something. He goes from the Octagon of Doom, and 2 days later, he's got to go to Fog Allen Fieldhouse, and he's already hoarse. He needs more tea. He needs throat lozenges. He needs something, man. Because my guy on a good day, RT does not have a he could be raspy on a good day.
So elsewhere in the Big 12, top 15 showdown. There were 2 top 15 showdowns today in college basketball. Both came out of the Big 12. In Ames,
like every day, you could say that every single day, Fanta.
Of course, it's beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. Iowa State 68, Kansas 53. Yeah. Rob, does this say more about the Cyclones to you for the good, or are you concerned about the Jayhawks?
I think it says a lot about the coaching and the identity that TJ Otzelberger has developed within that program, because they completely melted down on the road against Texas Tech, the only team to lose to Texas Tech in Big 12 play this year. Blew a 23-point second half lead. Like, it was kind of ugly on Monday. And then you come home and you get Kansas, and there's a chance for that thing to kind of go bad, right? And they just smacked them. That was never really a game. It was never really all that interesting. No one other than Jalen Wilson did anything for Kansas. And to me, as impressive as that was for Iowa State, like, I got red flags, I got warning sirens, I got buzzers going off. Kansas scored 53 points tonight, right? They got 26 from Jalen Wilson. Players not named Jalen Wilson on Kansas scored 27 points tonight, were 10 for 28 from the floor. They were 3 for 15 from 3. If he doesn't get help, LaVall, I don't know what Kansas can do because they already can't run stuff through the post the way that they normally do. They don't really have a point guard that could take games over. They kind of have sometimes a little bit of an Andre Jackson problem where nobody guards DeJuan Harris. And if you can't get Grady Dick going off, if Kevin McCullough is not going to be a guy that's a threat offensively, if those two little guards off the bench can't do anything, Pettiford and Yesufu, like, where are you getting offense from?
No, I thought it, to John's point, I thought it was said more about Iowa State's the defense, just 20 they forced 20 turnovers and scored 19 points off the turnovers. And, it disrupts your flow. So with the Grady Dick getting into the flow of what they normally do, like they keep you on one side of the floor with the no middle and they fire off from the baseline. And so DeJuan Harris's ability to play in pick and roll is kind of, null and void in a game like this. And so, Iowa State just takes you out of your stuff. Then you need a guy that can just make plays, all the way around and kind of figure that defense out, which is easier said than done. There's not a lot that have done it. And so, that was the thing that stood out to me. Just, they jumped on him early. Jalen Wilson, gave his best effort, but that defense just, it disrupts everything you do. You almost have to have a plan of attack specifically for that instead of playing the way we normally play.
I think Iowa State is also one of the nightmare teams to play in college basketball. They really are. And beyond their defense, the way that team runs half-court offense, the pace at which they run their sets at is really impressive. They know who they are. It's not pretty. It's not necessarily glamorous. They play their games in Ames. You ever been there? It's out of control. It's you feel like when you walk into the building, it's like a cult following. That's what the team has. I mean, they just the fans worship.
I've been there. I've been there with on the Iowa bench. Imagine that, if you can imagine that game.
And how did that go?
Oh, geez. Wow. Hilton Magic is real.
It's real.
Did you hear them today? Every time that Grady Dick missed a shot, the crowd started chanting, "You suck, comma, Dick."
Which is just
amazing.
Thing is that they only made 5 free throws and they only made 7 threes. It wasn't like the offense. It's the defense, man. Their defense is legit.
That to me is the team. Like, remember last year they went through their lull, and then going to the NCAA tournament, people were unsure, but then they still made the second weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, Iowa State is the team to me, guys. We're presented by Bet Rivers, that I would head over to the window. I don't think that they are a Final Four team, okay? However, if you told me that I had to pick 5 teams, 4 or 5 teams to make the Sweet 16, to me, like, Iowa State's just going to be there. They're going to be there in a regional semifinal because they're one of those teams, I think you would agree, Coach, that in the NCAA tournament, especially for opponents who haven't seen them play, I think it's really hard to simulate who they are and what they do in practice.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, it's just, I remember when Michigan, with Coach Beeline, he's an offensive genius. When they played Texas Tech and Beard was there with the no middle stuff, they struggled simply because you don't face that in the league, in the Big Ten. Nobody does that, and you can't simulate it in practice. It's like, so now you get out there and you're kind of figuring it out on the fly. You had a plan, but it's a bit more disruptive than you thought, and you're adjusting as you go, which is not easy, and guys have to really be locked in together. For teams in their league, they've seen it, so they game plan over, the course of a couple seasons playing against it.
Rob, if you had to right now go to the window and put all your stock on one of these Big 12 teams, all right? I know it changes day to day.
It's going to surprise you. It's going to surprise you who I say.
Who are you still the most bullish on?
It's going to surprise you when I say who it is. The Baylor Bears.
Yeah.
No one is paying enough attention to the Baylor Bears right now. No one is. They have, I would argue, the best backcourt in college basketball right now between Adam Flagler, Keontae George, and LJ Cryer, right? Two of those three guys go off every night. Right?
Yeah.
Two of the three of them go off. Jalen Bridges has been playing better. He had 18 points tonight. He had a couple threes tonight. It looks like he's starting to kind of turn the corner. And most importantly, Jonathan Tchamwa is back. He almost a year to the day from he suffered such a devastating knee injury. He tore the ACL. I think he tore the PCL. He basically tore everything that you can tear in a knee. There were questions about whether or not like this kid's ever going to play again. Gets back on the court, had 13 points tonight. 13 minutes tonight, 8 points, 4 boards, and he provides them with something they don't have right now in terms of a level of athleticism and a lob target and a roll guy. Just he's such a important piece for them. I think culture wise, like he just there's something that he brings to that team that you're not going to get anywhere else. And you combine that with great guards, and now your foreman starting to make some shots. Like they're really, really good. And if they did not lose a 1-possession game at home to Kansas State and the overtime game by 1 against TCU, they're basically 2 shots away from being a first place team in the Big 12 right now. That they can go, man. And they got Scott Drew. He solves a lot of problems.
I'm with you.
Did I sell you?
Yeah, I'm buying that.
Guards. I think Keontae George is like, I mean, you watch Hood Schifino today, earlier, and Keontae George, 2 talented freshman guards. I mean, Keontae George is a really good player especially for his age. He's mature in his game. His game's a mature game.
Who would you compare him to? We had this conversation the other night. Who would you compare him to?
That's a good question. I don't, top of my head, he's got a little bit of Darren Williams in him. He's not maybe as shifty, but he's got the size. He can shoot it. I think he's got a poise about him. I don't know. That's a good question. That was the first guy that popped into my head. So I don't know if that's accurate, but it was his first.
One of the guys that we were talking about was Brad Beal. Just his ability to he's not quite as explosive as Brad, but his ability to kind of, play on or off the ball, some of the work and ball screens. He kind of gets to where he wants to go, and he can rise up and can make the shot that he needs to make when he gets to his spot. I don't even know if that's a perfect comparison either. But
see, here's what I like. What I like about this Baylor team is, in the past, we talked about how tough they were and how much they would make it a street fight and just how great they were on that end of the floor. And then the offense would come along, and it did when they went on their national championship run. But I do think it's interesting because this team, this is Scott Drew's best offensive team. They're third in KenPom adjusted offensive efficiency. That backcourt is ridiculous, as you just said. And now with Big John back, he is a guy that just helps them automatically in the columns that you look at what Baylor's typically known for. So what fascinates me about the Bears is, here's a team where offense has been well ahead of their defense, but that's where Scott Drew is the man. Because you can feel last year, whereas Baylor experienced the downfall, the injury bug in college basketball, I knock on wood as I say this, it's almost like things have come full circle here and they're going the other way. Timing is everything. And Baylor represents that in college hoops. And I'm fascinated to see if this team can get everything clicking together and can show that they could just be solid defensively. Can you turn into a top 50 defense? Because if they get that going and they're together on that end of the floor, you combine that with their overall guard play. Rob, you said it. 2 of the 3 guys are going off per night, whether it's Cryer, Flagler, or George. The only reason why it's not all 3 is there's only 1 basketball, right? So I'm with you. I'm buying everything that you're putting down there. I would not be
I got
surprised.
another
I would
one
not
for
be
you.
surprised if Houston and Baylor met for the national championship, an all Texas final.
In Houston, that'd be a lot of fun. One more team I want to mention from the Big 12, Oklahoma State. They're a tournament team right now. I don't think people realize that. They're a tournament team right now.
Like big, my man.
They're 14-9 overall. They're going to end up being the top 35 team in the net once everything readjusts. They have 4 quad 1 wins. They have an ugly loss to Southern Illinois, but they beat TCU today. They beat Iowa State. They beat West Virginia. They won at Oklahoma.
They're in.
They were one of the first 4 out on fielding the 68 before beating TCU at home. They are a tournament team. Shout out to Mike Boeheim, man. Like he was fucked over by the NCAA last year with the tournament ban and everything. They got the way those that ban came out was just so unfair. And I am so happy for Mike. I don't think I've ever met anybody that doesn't like Mike.
No, he's the best.
Yeah. I don't think I've met anyone that doesn't like Mike. So I'm
called
very
to check
happy.
on me the other day just to see how I was doing. I'm like,
Well,
you
hey, he's hosted a show with us before.
I'm undefeated. You got games to play, brother.
Yeah. He's hosted a field of 68, so he probably called you up and was like, look, I want to make sure that you're not taking my spot in March.
Well,
might have to be
excuse
back.
me. Here's the thing. LaVall has unlimited security on the field of 68 after dark, because if you're not firing someone who is supposed to supply coverage of the rivalry on Tobacco Road, Duke, Carolina, Dagan, did we not have 5 minutes built in for a post-game interview?
I was wondering when this was going to get brought up.
I
was
sitting-
waiting. I was waiting.
I've
Yes,
been
we
sitting
did.
on it. So Dagan, what happened?
So I got a text from Jeff about an hour or two before the show.
Wait a minute, Jeff who? Jeff who?
Jeff Goodman.
Our plan was to be able to
Go ahead.
have.
I'm just gonna let Rob take it. Rob's gonna do this much better than I will. So Rob, you go ahead.
So our plan for doing the show tonight was that we were gonna have Goodman, who is on his way home from Charleston, fucking finally coming home from Charleston.
About time.
He went to Cameron Indoor. He was at the Duke Carolina game with his wife, and he went and he got an interview with John Shire after the game, and he sent it to Dagan, and we were going to drop it in the show, and Dagan played it, and there was no audio. It was just video of Goodman talking and Shire talking with no sound at all. I don't understand for the life of me how this man, who is part of 2 companies that do everything like digitally, Stadium and Field of 68, so much of what they do is online and mobile and all this. And this guy can't figure out how to record an interview and get the audio on it. Like, this is a constant problem. This is not Dagan, is this the first time this has happened?
This is not the first time this has happened.
This is not the first time this has happened. It's the
the
year of
first
our
time.
Lord, 2023, and Jeff Goodman can't figure out how to use a microphone attached to a cell phone. It's I don't know. LaVall, we might have to send you out to be our ace reporter from now on, man. Can you at least record something on your phone? You know how to record a video on your phone with sound?
I mean, I would record it and think it had sound for sure.
I really wish I could send you the video he sent after
You know what?
of him testing in the hotel room to show us that it did work.
Oh my God, Dagan, please send that to the group.
Yes,
I could, I could play it on the air right now if we really wanted to.
No, that's not.
No. You know what we should have done?
Don't
You know
do
what
that
we
to
should have
people.
done?
Don't do that to people.
Here's what we're not going to do that to people. What we should have done, Dagan, is we should have played the video and had Rob act as Jeff and like lip sync it.
We should just play the blank John Char video and let everybody determine what they think the interview's about.
What they think he said, and
Lip
Rob
read it.
could do Jeff's facial expressions as that was yeah.
So
As that
John,
was-
you were Derek Lively was able to get. He had 14 rebounds and 8 blocks tonight. What does that say about him? People were doubting him, right? Right?
Yeah. What was it like coaching Duke Carolina? What was it like? You've been a part.
You spent 12 years on the bench with Coach K, and now it's your turn. What was it like to get this win?
Are you are either of you surprised? I guess I am.
Are you still doing a Goodman impression or not?
Yeah, I was about to say, what's happening here? Is this a real
I'm
question?
back to myself. No,
I was a little thrown off too. I was trying to
it
figure
just
out.
made me think. It just made me think. Are you surprised that Coach K hasn't showed, is that he's staying away?
I'm not.
I'm not.
No. One, it's imagine how hard it would be to be Coach K in that building. Think about that.
Yeah.
Imagine
it's
him
funny
going.
how him and Roy are the exact opposite, though.
Well, the Dean Dome is a little bit easier to kind of navigate, right? And the problem with him like going anywhere is that he becomes the center of attention. Where like Roy's just kind of like, yeah, he's good old Roy, right? Like it's that Southern guy. It's like, oh shucks, whatever. Whereas Coach K is kind of like the villain, and I kind of get how he's like, I don't want to make the story about me, because he's not like, I don't know. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
All right, let's turn to this. Tennessee Auburn was a top 25 showdown in Knoxville. Tennessee wins 46-43. This game was ugly. It was defensively oriented. It was 23-19 at the half. Josiah Jordan James has 15 and 14. But Auburn has a look here, just shy of the buzzer. And this has drawn a lot of controversy. If you haven't seen it yet, it's all over YouTube. All you have to do is Auburn, Tennessee ending. Wendell Green Jr. misses a three. It's a contested three, in which I would say, watching this live, there's two schools of thought. Number one, Green doesn't really have that space that we talk about that a shooter is entitled to, and it looks like he gets fouled. The other school of thought I have is that was never going to get whistled in Knoxville. So where do you guys stand on this? Are both those things true? Was it a foul? Bruce Pearl obviously thought it was. He was pissed off and charging the crew when the game ended. LaVall, from what you've seen of that Auburn-Tennessee ending, where do you stand?
Yeah, I didn't, I told Rob earlier, if I was from Bruce Pearl, I'm screaming for a foul. If I'm Rick Barnes, it was verticality. I didn't, the question is, did he walk underneath him, and how much did Wendell Green kick his legs out, and that was hard to tell, the angle that they showed. So, and refs, I think they don't want to decide the game unless it's, painfully obvious. And I don't know, there was just a little bit of both going on. So I thought it was a good no call, to be honest, because I thought he walked down there a little bit. You got to give him space to land, but Wendell also kind of kicked forward. And so you just let the play happen and don't decide the game on that call. But it's a hard one, because you got to allow him space to land, which made it a bit tougher.
I thought that there probably should have been a foul call. Like I don't think that it's clear either way. I think I lean a little bit more towards it being a foul than it not being a foul, just because you could see Conwell kind of like lean in and then go straight up. And when you lean in and then go straight up after the contact has been made, that to me kind of looks like a foul a little bit. But I will say this: Tennessee won a game where they shot 27% from the floor, where they were 2 for 21 from three. That is a cool 9.5%, and where they shot 59% from the free throw line. Auburn has no excuses. Like maybe you could have gotten a foul, maybe not, but you lost a game where Tennessee shot 27% from the floor, 9% from three, and 58% from the free throw line. You scored 43 points in a game. I don't think that you have any room really to complain. That's just where I kind of stand on it. And that was a hideous basketball game. Can we never talk about that game ever again?
Oh my
You know what
God.
I need? After watching that game, I needed one of those like Men in Black, the memory erasers. When they flash a light in your eye and you just forget everything that happened.
Yes.
I want to erase that game from my memory. So I don't know. Maybe you deserve the foul, maybe not, but score more than 43 points and we don't even have to have a conversation.
Well, it's like that. Tennessee's been involved in some ugly games. Remember the Jimmy V Classic last year when they took on Texas Tech and the game went to overtime, and Texas Tech won the game. But Villanova and Syracuse were up next, LaVall, and Villanova Syracuse fans are all filling up the Garden. And they go to overtime. The game is so bad that when they go, this game is going to overtime, the entire Garden is booing the game. Like a chorus of boos rained down. It was epic. I hope we never have to talk about that game. I lean with you. It's a foul, but it wasn't going to get called in Knoxville.
Yeah.
If that game's at Auburn, it probably gets called. Auburn's a weird team. I mean, it's hard to believe they've been ranked as long as they have been. They will not be ranked on Monday.
Weird? They're not weird. They're just not very good.
Well, but Rob,
they're just not very good. They're like,
I disagree with that. I disagree with you. I don't think they're not very good. I think they got overrated, and I think that their guards have inconsistencies. They do defend, do they not?
Yeah, they defend. They can't really score. They have guards that don't really make good decisions. They're shooting 29% from three.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't have
not good.
They have decent big guys, not great big guys. They're
they
fine.
got college game day next weekend. They're hosting Alabama.
They might fuck around and win that game. Like that's the kind of thing. Bruce. Would you be shocked if Bruce
they're not any good?
Well, when I say they're not good, okay, I think that they're a tournament team, but they're like a 10 seed. They're like an 11 seed. They're not a top 25 team in America. They're not like a threat to win the SEC. They're fine. They're Pitt is what they are.
Where does Fielding the 68 have them? By the way, you can catch the show Fridays.
Who is this? What team did we mention?
Auburn.
Auburn. They're currently a 7 seed playing Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Rob's got them as an 11. So,
We'll be surprised. There's a reason Rob isn't on the Monday and Friday show.
Hey,
Rocco Miller and Andy Bottoms.
There's a reason Rob isn't on the Monday and Friday.
Can we talk about the Big East now?
Yes, please. Can we talk about the Big East?
Dagan, what questions do you have, Dagan?
They want the Big East.
They want the Big East. Just talk about the Big East.
All right. All right, let's talk. So the Big East had 4 games today. Admittedly, coming into the day, this was about Marquette and Xavier holding serve because they're tied for first. They both win. Creighton plays Villanova to a thrilling game that went down to the wire. The shot clock goes off in Omaha. So you got the PA announcer announcing the shot clock down the stretch. It was kind of crazy. Creighton wins 66-61. They stay on track in the race. UConn beats Georgetown 68-62. So Marquette, Xavier take care of business. Creighton and Villanova was wild. LaVall, which one of these teams to you do you want to focus on here? Just give me a thought on it on any of them. You got a blank canvas.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Xavier, because Fremantle's out.
Yes.
So the last 2 games, the Providence win. And it's typically not the first game a guy's out, because you have the adrenaline, the other guys, the rally, right, to step up. So that one you're not surprised by as much as, all right, the next game, as teams get to scout you without, whoever the guy is out with that is not playing. Now it's Fremantle. So that first game, guys step up and they rally, whatever. But now there's a scouting report for the new look Xavier, and they just gave it to St. John's. Now I know St. John's presses and traps and all, but I just think, their ability to get Desmond Claude came in, made shots. He's going to get more minutes. He's going to get more confidence down the stretch. And as Fremantle gets his way back in there, Jerome Hunter's played a pivotal role as the 6th man, and he's just gaining more confidence, for those times when somebody's in foul trouble. You get to the Big East tournament, you get to the NCAA tournament. That is the momentum that they're getting. Without him, I think, those 2 back-to-back impressive wins without one of their key players.
I love that our chat is just absolutely celebrating the fact that we're talking about the Big East right now.
They have been asking about the Big East since we literally started.
They're going absolutely nuts.
We've been going for an hour and a half, and literally 1 minute in, they're asking about the Big East.
LaVall knows because he coached in the league. You cannot deny the passion of Big East basketball fans.
Yes.
No, it's every night. Every
night. I wanna ask you guys a question because we'll get to Villanova in a second because I think the conversation about them that Villanova is much more interesting than Creighton in terms of the conversation right now after that game.
Yeah.
But I want to pose something to you guys. I would make the argument right now if I were giving somebody Big East Player of the Year.
Yeah.
This might sound crazy. I think I have to give it to Tyler Kolek. I think as of today, he is the Big East Player of the Year. Because to me, he's the engine that makes Marquette's offense run. And what Marquette can do offensively is the reason why this team went from being like, okay, you know what, they're kind of ninth in the Big East to all of a sudden, you know what, they have a chance to win the Big East. I don't think it works without him there, without his passing, and two, his improvement as a jump shooter. And
can't you say the same thing for Souley Boum though? In terms of it doesn't work without him there.
You could, and look, I love Souley, so you're just kind of like you're picking between your favorite flavor of ice cream, but I think that if Souley doesn't have a good game, right? If he's off, you still got Colby Jones there. You still got other guys that can kind of make that stuff work. And Souley to me is kind of like he's still more of a scorer first than he is setting anything else up. And I think that it's more that when you have like with what Tyler Kolek is doing, you need him to be able to create shots for other people because you don't necessarily have a ton of other guys that can go get their own or create their own. You kind of need him to do what he's doing to be able to make everything work in conjunction. And it's not just the stuff in the half court, right? It's like the hit ahead passes in transition. Like that dude's thinking the game on a different level.
It's elite now. It is elite. And you saw it last year, and now he's got a year in the Big East. His confidence is it's not a bad argument because you take him out, it's a different ball club. And
I don't think he's the best player, but I think based off of the season that he's had and what his team is doing, like he would be in the MVP conversation, however you want to phrase it. He's a stud, man. He is a stud. Yeah. When I talked with Shaka in the offseason, Shaka was hyping him up to me, and I was like, yeah, settle down, Shaka. Like, okay, I get it. Yeah, you like your point guard, and okay, this is the offseason coach speak. And I didn't really buy it. And now anything that Shaka says to me in the offseason, I'm gonna I'm taking it as gospel.
Well, I think
this game's tied, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm watching it.
Great game. Gonzaga St. Mary's going down the stretch. Woo! Brief thought
might as well just react to this bad boy live.
Yeah, let's get through the Big East and then we can react to it live. Then we can let LaVall go to bed. LaVall is tired, man. He coached 3 games today. He's not used to that. You're used to coaching 1 game, and now you're coaching 3 games in a day.
Brief thought on Big East Player of the Year. Over the last 4 weeks, Tyler Kolek has scored the ball at a terrific rate. He's got 3 performances of 20 or more. He's now up to 189 assists on the season. 189 assists on the season. However, I would give the full body of work to Souley Boum because it is a full body of work award. But if Kolek keeps this up over the last month, he's getting the Big East Player of the Year. His scoring over the last 3 weeks has been outstanding. I lean Boum today, but Kolek's on track here.
Hey, Fanta, real quick. Give me your call. Pretend we're watching this game and Souley Boum just hit a game winner. Give me the call.
Oh, geez.
I know you've thought about it. With a name like Souley Boum, I know you've thought about what you would say if he had a buzzer beater.
I've got Xavier in a couple weeks too, so it's coming.
All right, give us a little test right here. By the way, that is such a flop. I hate those calls. I hate when the post guy just
pull the chair.
Yeah, I
like Rick Mahorn. Rick Mahorn was great at that back in the day.
Yeah, I know. Rick Mahorn was good at a lot of stuff, flopping and fighting people. Go ahead.
10 seconds to go. Xavier, even with Marquette. Kolek guarding Boum. Boum. Crossover. Step back. Bada bing. Bada boom. Everybody go home. Souley says, so long, Golden Eagles. and boom goes the dynamite in Cincinnati tonight.
Hold on. Kevin B in the chat. Fanta, please don't make the call. My fiance is listening. If she hears you make this call, she may leave me. Too late, Kevin B.
Please don't leave.
Fanta, she just took the ring off. Jesus.
Yeah. Sorry, Kevin.
Sorry, Kevin.
Valentine's Day is next week, so please don't leave. All right. What St. Mary's Gonzaga? I was immersed in that call. We have a tie game still.
Yeah, it's 59-59 St. Mary's ball. All right, let me ask you guys real quick before this game ends.
Yeah.
Justin Moore.
Yes.
I still don't think he's himself. LaVall, you coached against this dude, right? You've now watched him for 3 games. How far away is he from being who he needs to be? And if we ever see the Justin Moore that we saw in March of last year before he popped the Achilles, what does that do to change this Villanova team? Because honestly, I don't know. If you have a healthy Justin Moore, I think that's the best starting 5 in the Big East. Is that crazy? That might be a hot take.
Yeah, that could be your hot take. I just know when he's not Justin Moore quite yet in terms of where he is when he's not still thinking about, the injury. I think he's doing great. You never know how a guy will come back from an ACL and an Achilles. They could win the Big East tournament if he gets to that comfort level. Like, there's no reason. They just went to Creighton and barely and almost pulled it out. And that's one of the hardest places to play in the Big East. And so he takes pressure off Caleb Daniels. Eric Dixon, Eric Dixon took a couple of the meaningful shots down the stretch. I think partially because Justin can't be Justin quite yet. But now that changes and that's a big if, right? Because you don't know if it'll even happen this year, if he'll just feel completely comfortable. Yeah, but if he does, they could win the Big East tournament and be dancing.
They're not far away, man. Like they lost, I think they lost by 8 at UConn, which was a close game. They lost by 2 at home to Marquette. They lost by 8.
They're 4-11 in single-digit games. 4-11.
Yeah. They're not that far off. What they don't have is a guy in a big moment who can go get you one. And that's kind of what Justin Moore can do for them.
And they don't have a point guard. And over the last decade, they've had not good point guard play, not great point guard play.
Best in America.
The best point guard play in the country. You went from Ryan Arcidiacono to Jalen Brunson to Colin Gillespie.
But even John, when Colin Gillespie went down with the injury a couple of years ago, Justin had to take over that role and get him back to the tournament. And that, I think, helped him develop developmentally. So then last year he was even better because he had that experience.
It's going to be interesting to see here, LaVall, because I do think Villanova's, if you got them in December or January on your Big East schedule, right now you are kicking your feet back and being like, I am so glad. I am so glad I don't have to deal with them.
Hey, I had the Villanova team with Brunson, Bridges, DiVincenzo, Spellman, Pascal. Not that I would love to coach against this Villanova team, but it's a different Villanova team than that one. My goodness.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see here down the stretch how they play a spoiler role. And it will be very, very interesting to see what happens with their Big East tournament seeding. Where do they get seeded? What's the draw there? Because if you're the 1, 2, or 3, Villanova's probably going to be a 7 or 8 seed in the Big East tournament. Man, we could go into that final Saturday where we're looking as much as where Villanova's going to be seeded, as much as we're looking at who wins the regular season championship.
Yeah, and after the top 4 teams in the league, after you get Xavier, Marquette, Providence, Creighton, why wouldn't you put your money on Villanova to be, seeded 5th?
What happened? What just
twisting
happened?
the knife. He's just twisting the knife on me.
I'm not saying they will. I'm saying
they're 4-8 in the conference, so I don't.
UConn.
But I'm not
top
saying
4 teams in the league. Then you got Villanova.
Oh, beautiful!
You're just lumping UConn right in there with Seton Hall. Just
Gonzaga
right
goes up 2.
Yep.
Gonzaga goes up 2. Less than 30 seconds to go on my screen.
All right, real quick before this game ends, can I give you my little spiel on UConn? You guys know as much about the Big East as most as
they don't have it. They finished with UConn at home.
Well, what's funny about that? We were when we were planning trips for this season for what to do, one of the things I had planned was like, we got to do a live show from UConn at Philly or UConn at Villanova, because that's in Philly. That's a home game for me. Like, that's probably going to decide who wins the Big East regular season title. And now it's like that might decide who ends up getting a bye into the Thursday day games of the Big East. No, like I'm kind of to the point where I think that UConn's entire season is going to be based off of whether or not you can get Andre Jackson's confidence back. Like that, to me, that's the only thing that matters at this point, right? You're not winning the Big East regular season title. You probably have a chance to win the Big East tournament. And if things go right, maybe you have a chance to make a run in March. None of that's going to happen if Andre Jackson is scared to shoot the basketball. You got to find a way to get his confidence back. You got Tristan Newton rolling now. He's cooking, right? We know what Jordan Hawkins can be when he gets going. Adama Sanogo's been better down the stretch. But if you can, if Andre Jackson allows you to play 4-on-5, UConn has no chance. You got to find a way to get him confident.
And Klingon. I mean, Donovan Klingon's been awfully quiet here as of late.
It's tough for the role that he plays. Oh, 5 seconds left. We got a tie game.
I'm behind.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Way to ruin it for the rest of us.
What's going on?
Way to ruin it for the rest of us, Rob.
Oh, beautiful dish inside. So now 5 seconds left. Don't ruin it, Rob. And
well, I already know what happens. I'm looking at the YouTube chat.
Yep.
Overtime.
Well, might as well keep it going.
Yep. No, Fanta, to answer you about Klingon, he's very good when it comes to just like kind of catching lobs and rolling to the basket and being a finisher, but he's not someone that you could throw the ball to on the block. He's not a great screener. And when Jackson's out there and nobody's guarding him, there's just no space. You're never going to be able to get a roll when the guy guarding Andre Jackson is literally standing in front of the basket. And so if Jackson's not a threat offensively, like it's never, ever going to work. It's just not going to work. So you got to get him confident. That's the thing. I talked with a coach that played him earlier this season, and they tried to play this like, we're not going to guard Andre Jackson kind of an offense, right? And he made 2 shots in the first 10 minutes of the game, and he was playing like he knew who he was, like he was an NBA player, played with that level of confidence where it was you had to respect him offensively. And right now in his mind, he's playing as if you don't have to respect him offensively. And if you're doing that, you can play 4-on-5. It's just going to ruin everything that they do because it blows up all of their actions, all of the screening stuff. They need Andre Jackson to play like he's the fucking guy if they want to have a chance to be able to make a run.
Yeah, the beginning of the Xavier game, and I've coached non-shooters, the guys that were shooting with a strength, and it gets in your head mentally.
That was bad.
No question. But that because the first Xavier game, he made them at Xavier, and it was like when they were rolling in the whole deal. But they're still really good. Tristan Newton playing like he's playing. That's what they needed. They needed another guy to be aggressive offensively.
Sometimes it's just like, for me, what stood out about them early in the year was just how physical they were. Yeah, they were a team that on top of how electrifying they could be offensively, they could come at you in waves. They were guarding the ball really well. I mean, they were really guarding. And they still do that here and there, but they do fall into some lapses at times. And I don't know, it feels like for Connecticut that along the lines of Jackson, what happens is offensively, the difference between him at the 3 and him at the 4 is very sharp. And they found something in the second half against Xavier by putting Andre Jackson at the 4 and having him start to go to the rim and using him.
Well, they kept Caravan. They flip-flopped him and Caravan.
Yeah, we talked about that, LaVall. It's because it engages Andre Jackson's defender in the play. And I think we saw – I didn't watch the Georgetown game as closely as I've watched the other games because there was like 4 other things going on. I was watching a lot of Kansas, Iowa State when that was on. But I only saw them run that set twice. That one where they have Tristan Newton coming off of the staggered, where Andre Jackson is the first screener, that they probably got like 7 or 8 buckets out of it in the second half against Xavier. I only saw them run it twice against Georgetown. And I don't know if that was just a design. You tell me what you think, LaVall. It feels like these last 2 games at DePaul, at Georgetown, Danny was trying to get Andre going a little bit. Instead of just relying on the stuff that worked against Xavier, it looked like he was trying to get him going, which is a little bit frustrating because he's not adjusting to the things that have worked. But I also kind of get it, right? Because if you don't get Andre going, I don't know if you're never going to hit your ceiling. You could be good without him. You could be great if you get him back to being the guy that he was in November.
Yeah, I think they found some things though. Like I had their DePaul game after, and they had their bye week leading into that game, and I thought they found the flip flop between the 2 wings, Andre and Caravan, in the back half of the Xavier game. The zone was good because if Andre goes to the 4 and you got a mismatch 4-man, you can just play the 1-3-1 and keep him in the game. Then in the DePaul game, they played Kling and Sanogo together and just went bully mode. And just tried to dominate the paint. And they hadn't done that for long. They did it for a longer stretch. I think Danny saying,
go ahead.
You know, when you think long term, we want to be able to win different ways. So when you get to the tournament, you know, can we match up or force people to try to match up with us? And Andre's gonna have to just let it fly with confidence, whether he's 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. He's still on the court. And so you do want to get that back, you know, without sacrificing things for the team. But I think they've established like some different ways to play so that Danny can, you know, like I was saying about Kevin Wheeler, he does a really good job at that, finding different ways to play and then finding the one that's working that night.
Yeah.
The one thing
the Jackson conundrum is the thing. Like, the thing about it is he does so many intangibles. He just does so many different things that you cannot teach, like the pass for the Caravan Dagger 3.
That was ridiculous. That was a ridiculous. Like I said that I don't know if there's 5 players in college basketball that could make the play that he made. Did you see that, LaVall?
I didn't see it. I missed the end of the Georgetown game.
Yeah, I got the clip somewhere. I'll send it to you. But basically, what he did was he got an offensive rebound on the weak side of the floor. He had 4 guys around him and found a way to throw like kind of like a hook pass. It was almost like a no look pass to the opposite wing to Caravan, who hit a dagger 3. And I don't know. 1, I don't know how many guys can make that pass. And 2, I don't know how many dudes would have the balls to be able to throw that pass in that moment with 20 seconds left, right? I think it was 30 seconds left, 20 on the shot clock, up by 3. To throw a cross-court pass like that, no look over your shoulder, you got to have some stones to make that pass. The last point I'll make, and then we can get off of UConn, is that I understand why people are frustrated, why UConn fans are frustrated that Jackson hasn't been sent to the bench, but I think it's very important to know.
People are. I'm sorry, that's idiotic. Come on,
making a 3. Oh, Aiden Mahaney, man. No, look, UConn at their core, what Danny Hurley wants his teams to be are teams that are going to be aggressive defensively, force some turnovers, get some rebounds, make plays, kind of win with athleticism and toughness. And you can't do that if Andre Jackson is not on the floor because they just don't have enough big athletes and really good defenders. Everybody else is kind of like a solid to like above average defender. Andre Jackson is a complete game changer in terms of what he could do offensively in transition and what he can do defensively.
Oh, my goodness.
Mahaney madness is happening.
Oh my goodness.
They are so
This kid is good.
Oh my goodness. That is such a I just saw the same thing you just saw. Their offense, their offense off. No,
that wasn't offense, John. That was this dude, this guy Mahaney.
Yeah.
My goodness.
He's a stud.
He's wow. I hadn't watched it. I've heard it, heard about it. I haven't watched St. Mary's as much. But
this guy is going to have an amazing college.
The freshman,
career.
right?
Yeah.
That no look pass, man.
Ooh, baby.
Watch how he moves you can't see it from there, but he completely iced up Drew Timme because Drew Timme was like, "Oh, he's not hitting the roller," and was about to go try to get the guy on the wing.
It's a nasty, nasty, nasty dish. It's I'm looking at it now. That's just him with a no look. You're totally right. But time and again here, I'm amazed, LaVall, by the composure of St. Mary's and the way that they run their stuff. They are just so well coached.
Yeah, Randy's teams, and he's always found Patty Mills or Dellavedova. Now this kid, I mean, he's always had a really good point guard.
Mickey McConnell, Jordan
McConnell,
Ford. He always has a guy. They run more ball screens than anybody. I think that if you go and look at the numbers on Synergy, like they always lead the country in percentage of possessions that end in ball screens.
They could be. They're up by 6 with 2.5 minutes to go. Like St. Mary's is on the cusp of being 21-4 on the season and 10-0 in the WCC, and Gonzaga would have 2 WCC losses. St. Mary's would be in the driver's seat to win the WCC title.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to think about.
Which hasn't happened since when, John?
I think 2011, I want to say.
I'm going to look right now.
2012.
2012.
On it. Last time Gonzaga didn't share it or win it outright.
Yep, 2012. Who was on that team? Was that the Omar Samhan team? Rob Jones, Dellavedova, Stephen Holt.
Yeah, Delhi.
And
Brad Waldo was a freshman. Wild.
All right, I'll tell you what. I mean, I already thought so highly of Randy's teams because they're so disciplined. But with Mahaney performing like this on this stage, and I think Gonzaga's played pretty well. This was always going to be a tough game for them.
They were up big and they kind of choked this thing away.
They did.
They're up double figures. All right,
what does that go back to? That goes back to the fact that if it's not Timme and Strother, Gonzaga's offense disappears.
Yep. Do you think that which one of these teams, if you had to pick one to make a run in March, you had to pick one of these two to make a Final Four, who are you riding with?
Ooh. I haven't seen St. Mary's play until just now, so I hadn't seen Mahaney. But when you got a guard like that, when you got a really good guard, man, you can ride him and he can make everybody else better.
And you have a top 5 defense in America.
He can make everyone else better. They're tough, they're smart, they're skilled, they're physical.
You have a top 5 defense, you have a really, really good point guard, and you have a team that shoots 37% from 3.
Yeah,
well, and you're asking us to pick between Gonzaga and St. Mary's, and Gonzaga doesn't have point guard play at a high level. And my standards are high, but here's the thing with Gonzaga. The last 2 years, they've had Andrew Nembhard and Jalen Suggs. I mean, the lead guard play has been absolutely absurd for them. They haven't gotten it to the same degree this year.
How'd you feel awful for BYU? Like they had both of these teams beat and lost at the buzzer.
Good point.
My goodness.
It's an interesting bigger picture conversation on Gonzaga, right? Because here you go, in the WCC, everybody always complains. That's the national narrative, right? That they don't get challenged and whatnot. I think it's
that's just people not paying. Like the WCC is a really good. It's like it's on the same level as like the Atlantic 10. It might be better. Same level as like the American, maybe a little bit better. They're really good teams in that league.
Is it on the same level as the Mountain West? Or is the Mountain West better than the WCC?
I'd say the Mountain West is a little bit better than the WCC.
Yes, I agree with you.
It's not as good at the top, but it's a little bit. They have the Mountain West, you're normally getting like 3, maybe 4 bids in, whereas the WCC, you're looking at 2. Good year, you get 3, right?
So, Rob, well, wait a minute. LaVall, what's on your docket tomorrow? What's going on with the Jordan family? What are you doing on your fine Sunday?
You gonna watch Tottenham play Manchester City? You want to wake up?
That's not on the docket. I got a gymnastics meet for my my 4th grade. Going from basketball to gymnastics.
Hey man,
that's the big event tomorrow.
We got gymnastics in the morning, then we got a basketball game at 2, and then we have our first baseball training session at 3:30. He's got
I like that.
Look, LaVall, I'm not gonna lie. I love doing like the sports dad stuff. I love it so much. I love coaching the basketball games, and you get like these when you try to like tell them to do something with these 6 and 7 year old and it works, and then they make the shot and they're running back and everyone's like celebrating. I'm like, yeah, let's fucking go.
Oh, wait a minute. What do we got here? Who's
rolled his ankle? Can I tell you what my son did the other day in the game? I don't know if I've said this on the show yet.
Is it Hickman?
Yeah, it's Hickman. He rolled his right ankle. So my son likes to shoot a lot, right? And he's actually a pretty good shooter. And so he comes down to the game and he makes this like little jumper that's about like 5 feet away from the rim, right? Next possession down, a little bit farther out, he makes the next one, right? 2 possessions later, he makes another one, and like he's feeling himself. He's literally running down the court doing the gritty, and I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He's like, I'm doing the gritty. Like, okay, if you say so. Next possession defensively, he gets a steal. He picks up the ball and he's running down court, and we got like a 2-on-0 fast break, and this dude pulls up from the 3-point line and just lets it fly. And we're talking like this thing was like 8 feet short. Like this was a regulation 3-point line on the court that we were playing at, and he probably got it down to like the second marker on the lane. And I'm like, I almost fell out laughing when he shot this. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I was feeling it. Okay, there you go. Fair enough.
All right, 71-67, 41 seconds to go.
All right.
Where are you? I have St. Mary's inbounding the ball.
Kevin B said you have to tee your own kid up if he's hitting the gritty in a game. Kevin B's been on a good one tonight. I just want to bring that up.
I love
Kevin
that.
B's been killing it in the chat tonight.
Well, Rob will send pictures of his kids in their groups. He'll be like, guess which one's mine? His kids are the easiest kids to point out.
Yeah, they're doing something ridiculous.
His daughter is like the easiest kid to point out. Absolutely. Beyond easy. The same can be said with Terrence Oglesby. Point out his kids like there's like it's the easiest thing ever.
I'll give you another thing we haven't talked about tonight. And I don't know how I mean I know how it hasn't come up. But wait till this game's over. Thoughts on Kentucky, Florida? We haven't even mentioned Kentucky tonight. In our 2 hours of show we've had.
Man, I'll tell you, did you see the Florida possession? They were going for 3. If they could have taken 2, they didn't have any timeouts left.
Yeah, it wasn't a great shot.
And it
wasn't a great shot. I'll tell you this. Kentucky won a game against a Florida team that's been really hot on a night when Oscar Tshiebwe finished 2 for 14 from the floor.
Wow. That wouldn't have been able to predict that.
They
probably lose a month ago.
Here was my takeaway. Cason, is it Cason?
Cason
Wallace.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was ridiculous on both ends of the floor.
Yes.
The stuff he was doing at the rim, I mean, he had a couple contests at the rim that were for a guard. Yeah. And then the pull-up jump shots and the little, like he's big time. He is really talented and competitive, and he's got all the tools, man. He's good.
To other SEC coaches, he's an MFer. I mean, that guy just causes problems for teams.
I was so impressed with him. I mean, and I've watched them before, but just in a game, and you like Rob said, Florida's coming in hot, and he just said, "No, not today." And with his playmaking and like big ones and big moments.
Yeah, I'm in on this Kentucky team. I'm in. I don't know where they're going to end up getting seeded. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get something better than like a 7, 8, 9, 10 kind of a seed when things are all said and done, barring like some really impressive run down the stretch. But Cal has understood and figured out that the lineup that he needs to play is with Cason Wallace at the 1 and then 3 kind of wing perimeter shooter players out there. Sometimes it's Chris Livingston. Sometimes it's CJ Frederick and Antonio Reeves. And then he kind of rides the hot hand from there. But he's really bought into this idea that, like, we got to put 4 guys around Oscar Tshiebwe. We got to let Cason Wallace be kind of the guy. And it's working, man. It's working.
Rob, I got a text from an assistant coach who said, tell Dauster His kids pull up 3 on a 2-on-0 break is just what shooters do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to coach the confidence out of him.
No,
Right?
you want to just build.
What we're working on now is like he can make layups, but he hasn't figured out that like you only get 2 steps. So he'll dribble the length of the court and pick the ball up at the 3-point line and take like 7 steps and go and make the layup. And I'm like, dude, you got to dribble. You can't just run the whole way. When you're that age and you can make layups and you can dribble the ball, like you look like you're really good. All right,
this is another end of game. I know we got to wrap this up. Another end of game that just takes forever.
Yeah, we can wrap this up, Fanta.
It's finally time to wrap it up after 2 hours.
I gotta be in Newark in about 8 hours. How's that sound to you all?
LaVal's sitting here like,
hey, we can't forget. Toast of the night. Don't forget.
Oh, toast of the night. Yeah, go ahead.
Don't forget.
Oh, easy for me. Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua, welcome back. And also Vince Iwachukwu for USC, welcome back. 2 guys, well, welcome. He made his debut tonight. 2 guys
starting debut.
Yeah, starting debut. Great for those guys. Great comeback stories. JTT, it's great to have Chamwa-Chachua back for Baylor. A toast to those guys coming off injuries, coming off setbacks, for being back on the hardwood where they belong.
Yep. LaVall?
I'm going with Mike Woodson, Coach Woody, number 1 team in the country, coming into Bloomington, the easy one. Back-to-back years beating them at home after not having success in the last 9. So, yeah, I don't know. They turned it around, but that's a huge one, and they're heading in the right direction. So, Coach Woody's figured out the defense. So give Coach Woody some love.
I'm going with Rayshawn Taylor from SIU Edwardsville. Hit a 70-foot 3 at the buzzer for the win. It was 81-81. Ball gets inbounded to him from the other foul line, lets it fly. Didn't even bank it in. Cash money. He hit it. Fanta, send us home.
For producer Dagan Hughes, for LaVall Jordan, for Rob Dauster. Somebody said that they wouldn't log off the show until we mention the name. So for Azulis Tubelis as well, who deserves to be an All-American in my book, I'm John Fanta saying so long. Please don't get involved in a breakup over our show. We don't endorse that at all. Love is always in the air on the field of 68 after dark. Get some sleep. You